Hey guys, Ryan with Motorcycle.com out here testing the KTM Duke 390 as well as the BMW G310R. One problem I just ran into though is I'm one person, we have two bikes here, so I don't know if there's anyone else around. Wait a minute, is that Troy?
Hey, yeah, I was just kind of up in the hills here.
Hey, and you got gear on too, man. How you doing?
Just happened to be wearing my motorcycle gear, and I saw you were testing bikes. Can I hop along too and ride?
Yeah, why not, man?
This sounds fun.
Yeah.
So what is this again?
That's the BMW G310R, and this is the KTM Duke 390. You want a preference?
I hope I still know what I'm doing. Let's go ride.
Cool.
Well, Ryan, I gotta say, for my return back to reviewing bikes in the Mo fold, starting off on these little ones is a perfect way for me to go, because I've kind of lost a little bit of my touch since the last time I did these things. But yeah, a lot of fun, but very interesting, these two, the BMW and the KTM 390 Duke. They look like they should be pitted against each other, right? But like, I think today we figured out very quickly, these are two completely different motorcycles. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely.
How so?
Well, I think, you know, when you turn on the KTM every time, the keychain that's on it lets you know it's ready to race. And every time you sit on that thing and you're supermotoed over the front tire, it feels that way, right? You know, that thing feels like you should put it into supermoto mode, start sliding the rear tire around, just have a lot of fun with it. Great fun in the canyon roads. The BMW again is a little bit softer, more cushy, and just more of a, I don't want to say livable day-to-day bike, but it's just a really comfortable, not so extreme all the time bike as the KTM.
Absolutely. We were joking about that earlier, but I was riding the BMW first. Felt like a natural position to be on, and then I hopped on the KTM and immediately I'm like, holy crap, this is a completely different ergonomic feeling. Right over the front tire, like super aggressive. It lets you know in typical KTM style, I'm ready to race. Let's go carve up these roads. And that being said, on these twisty roads, obviously the KTM hauls the mail and gets around here pretty darn quick. But the BMW is no slouch either, right? No,
they're both fun to ride, and they were both a lot of fun out here. And I think we were talking about it a little bit too with the way the KTM makes power. You can let it lug down a little bit, and it's still got torque. You know, being the 373cc engine, single engine, it still has a good amount of torque down into the rev range a little bit. This one, you know, I think almost everyone that I've seen ride this thing has stalled it once or twice. You have to keep the engine spun up all the time. Yeah. You know, and that's where the power lives on this bike.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I'm guilty of stalling the BMW. A couple of red lights turn green. I give it what I thought was enough gas, let the clutch out. Gah. Like, oh, right. I gotta really rev this thing to get going again.
I swear I know what I'm doing, guys.
Right? Exactly. But that also, you know, you made a good point. The BMW has a smaller engine. You really gotta be up there in the revs to get any sort of power out of it. On the freeway, 80 miles an hour, 6 gear is like, I think it was about 8,100 RPM when redline is 10. So you're really just revving the nuts off the BMW to get it to go. KTM, meanwhile, lugging around some of these really tight twisties in 3rd or 4th gear. Exit the corner, get on the gas, and it has enough torque to motor on past. It's really impressive how much power this little KTM makes.
Yeah, and I think going back to, you know, your comment about the freeway, I rode this one out here and I was still spinning, you know, 8,000 RPM at 80 mile an hour. But this thing, I don't know, it's completely devoid of vibration. I feel like on the BMW, higher up in the revs, you can kind of feel it throughout the bike. I definitely could on the GS that I tested more recently, but again, the 390 Duke on the freeway is surprisingly devoid of vibration, and because you're in that kind of attack position, the wind you're kind of leaning into it, so it's not that fatiguing either.
Riding the BMW on the freeway, I felt like kind of the opposite. The wind was pushing me back enough to where I kind of had to reach for the bars more so than I would have preferred. Nothing crazy, nothing extreme, but me personally, if the bars could be a little bit higher, a little bit angled towards me so that I'm on the freeway, I don't have to really strain to reach as much, my personal preference, but your body type may affect that differently, so take that for what it's worth. Let's go over something else, the price points. These are really accessible motorcycles for both brands. The BMW at $4,750, that's a very affordable and attractive price point for a BMW, and I mean, for that price, you're getting a lot for your money. I would imagine you could say the same thing about the KTM, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, KTM has some different models that are lower price points, and now that BMW's gotten into that game with the 310R and the 310 GS, KTM had a really nice package with the 390 Duke beforehand, and now that they've made some really nice little upgrades, it elevates this from just being some entry-level motorcycle to a really great bike, and it's $5,299. Yeah, it's totally an accessible price point into the brand, and it's hard to call it an entry-level bike with,
right.
It's 5.2-inch TFT display.
Which is awesome,
yeah,
by the way.
The WP suspension is the best that I've tested out of, kind of the entry-level bikes. So I think with all the niceties you have on the 390 Duke now, with the styling of it basically looks like a smaller 1290 Duke R, right? So I think really, I use the term, kind of throwing it around, entry-level motorcycles. These aren't really entry-level motorcycles, right? They're more just small displacement motorcycles. For that one, again, spitting image of the Super Duke R, I don't know that I would say buy that and then buy the 1290 Super Duke R, but it's a fun, aggressive motorcycle, and it takes you in that direction for sure.
I mean, the 390 Duke is a stepping stone to the 790 Duke and then the 1290, whereas in a similar vein, the G310, stepping stone to maybe an F800, maybe an R12, maybe even an S1000, who knows? It's funny though, with both of these motorcycles, you can definitely feel the DNA of both companies when you ride both of them. So that all being said, Ryan, between the two, what's your pick?
Well, after having the KTM for a little bit at my house, around the neighborhood, messing with the different ABS modes off Supermoto, this thing is so much fun, and it's light and it's maneuverable. I had a lot of fun on this bike, and I could see myself buying that bike to have a great time on. The BMW, again, is super smooth, really, soft is maybe the wrong word, but it's just really nice and easy to ride. But I think my personal preferences would go towards the 390 Duke.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm of a similar mindset. When push comes to shove, I really don't know which one I would pick. If I had a road like this literally as my backyard, the KTM might be my choice. But for everyday living, the KTM does have a hard seat.
Aggressive seating position.
Aggressive seating position. The suspension is not hard not stiff by any means, but definitely more oriented towards sporty riding. Whereas the BMW, overall, it's a much more comfortable seating position. The suspension is sprung softer for everyday riding. But then you get to the engine package. The KTM has power all over the place for its displacement category. The BMW, you really got to rev the nuts off the thing to go. So I'm torn. If I was 90% city and maybe 10% canyon riding, I'd probably lean towards the BMW. And of course, if that ratio were flipped, I would go with the KTM.
Yeah, looking at the two bikes, it's really your preference.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it? What styling do you like? They're very different styles. KTM's very radical with the bright orange, black, the white subframe. It looks great. But the BMW looks like a BMW. Everything's tucked away really nicely, and it has its own style. So really, it's kind of what kind of motorcycle do you want, and again, what are you going to do with it?
So that's a good way of saying we don't exactly know how this is going to pan out exactly. So you're going to have to read the full story at Motorcycle.com. Get our full thoughts, scorecards, opinions, the whole 9 yards there, and you'll see the final word there.
So if you like the video, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.